Are we live yet? I think we are. Meg, go fuck yourself. Oh, well, language like that. It's almost as if you're begging for me to remove your wrench. I think I will. Give me a second. I'm a good person, but until Dibula gets here and starts saying nasty things about tea, I'll just have to impose my authority. Here we go. There we go. And we'll make Tiger Lily a mod for now. You know why this had to happen? For shame, Discanar. Good evening, everyone. What am I doing today? What? He had a wrench because Count Dibula was throwing shade at tea. So I needed someone to pay attention to the chat. Because I'm lazy. Yeah. This week's PMQ was a bit meh. There have been a few in the past where, I don't know, I felt like there was more going on. And there was certainly a decent back and forth. They're rare, granted. But this one was especially wasteful. I did notice on Twitter a number of people indicate that Corbyn wiped the floor with Theresa May, and it's a weekly occurrence on Twitter with the trending hashtag PMQs, but it's not entirely accurate. And there are a number of instances that Corbyn could have done better. In fact, I'd argue he wasted 3 questions at least with some of the stuff he said. He also said some silly things he should not have said, which is why I put Jacob Rees-Mogg on the thumbnail. Because he does actually say something rather incorrect. I would say he outright lied about Jacob Rees-Mogg. And by doing so, he did actually get called out on it after PMQs, but he didn't withdraw his remark. And we'll get to that later. So, this week's theme is predominantly... Oh god, there's so many sources. It is mostly about Brexit. Pretty much mostly about Brexit and business. Oh, and then there's the little lol bit with the SMP at the end. And we'll get to that soon enough. So, hello to everyone in the chat. Where is it? There it is. Okay. I think we're going to pay attention to one of the first questions before Jeremy Corbyn asks, because one of them is quite interesting. I just can't remember which one, and I should probably turn that up a little.
Questions to the Prime Minister. Helen Goodman. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week is Armed Forces Week, and I know that on...
Oh god, I keep forgetting about all this. Every week is a something week. I'm going to skip ahead a little. Right. I have no idea what this person asked, by the way. I actually skipped her question originally, so let's just find out and then I'll skip it if it's too boring.
The Prime Minister is quite right. We all celebrate the huge contribution our armed forces and reserves make. Last year, the Prime Minister promised that no school would see a cut in its budget.
This argument is one where there are 2 separate goalposts. There is the actual amount of money given, and then there is the supposed amount of money they're given in proportion to current rates of inflation, i.e. matching economic growth. If the number is lower than the economic growth, it's stupid. It's a stupid aggregate. So I'm going to let her ask a question. I did pull up a source for that actually. We'll get to it soon enough.
Yet half the schools in Bishop Auckland continue to face real cuts.
A number of those schools are below good. Just saying.
Some of over £1,000 per child. Doesn't she understand the damage this does to their life chances?
The government, Theresa May is going to mention, what's it called? I've got the source. Where is it? Here it is. The school block national funding formula. And I had no idea this even existed. It's basically a way of calculating a baseline for core schools, which basically then it boils down to enrollment for previous year and then something to do with ratings. So if your school isn't doing as well, are you going to put more money into that school, or are you going to somewhat sanction them to improve? Then again, and I hate academies, I'm not huge on them, but their results are proven. They appear to be the way forward, which is a divisive argument, with many saying that we should have one blanket type of schooling, and that's it. That's what Jeremy Corbyn suggests. I'm not totally against the idea of everyone having the opportunity to the same type of education, but I'm also not opposed to the idea of people wanting to pay for their child to go to a private institute. I see nothing wrong with that. It may sound snobbish, but I just don't care enough. I mean, I don't mind. I don't think many do. Anyone that has a child would want their child to do better, and they'd want them to have the best opportunity. Just knowing that you have one opportunity and it's very basic doesn't seem right. Seems to close doors, if anything. And I know that this also, with Jeremy's position on education being everyone should have the same opportunities, would mean those that are unique in a good way, those that don't have any mental disabilities that hamper their progress, they would be held back from achieving full potential on the grounds that everyone would then surely have to have the same opportunity that person has. I'm going for more food porn tomorrow night. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, if anyone's interested in reading the national funding formula, which Theresa May's going to mention, I believe it's on page 8, where it says the adjusted pupil count, which uses the total number on roll for the APT. What was ATP stand for? Fuck it, can't remember. Adjusted something. If the school is a special unit, then, or resource provision, we add back to the pupils in high national places that have been deducted from and then enrolment. It's really complicated, pointless language. It actually is pointless. They could just show in a graph. That would actually be more accurate. But over every single page there is no actual graph. It's just pointless language. It does show the unit value per student, and I can imagine that pisses off a lot of people, because it actually in hundreds shows you what students are worth. Oh, that could piss a lot of people off. Anyway.
The Prime Minister!
Can I say to the Honourable Lady, as she knows, we are putting extra funding into the schools. We are making extra money. We are making extra money available for schools, and our national fair of...
Disconnard, did you just downvote my stream again? I'm going to move you out of that voice chat. I might take Dali's suggestion on board. Oh shit. Looks like Mouse is being special.
The fairer funding formula that we have introduced is ensuring that some of the schools that have previously been among the worst funded in this country are seeing increases in their funding to help to redress that balance.
Remember when I said the argument of related to inflation and economic growth? This is where Labour and the Conservatives disagree. More actual money is being put in, but because of displacement, I guess, it's not showing as being more money put in. Although I would also argue if the schools aren't doing as well, then why on earth would you put more money into them? You're not going to get a return on that.
Mr. Lawrence
and she's wearing gumballs around her neck because that's what she likes to wear around her neck.
Robertson!
Fuck this. It's a plant question. We're going to move on. Right.
For veterans in their housing and health...
Oh, he starts off by joining the Prime Minister in the praising the military forces. This man is a pacifist. It feels weird when a man who is a very open pacifist praises the military. Something about that just doesn't feel right.
Needs as well. I would also like, Mr. Speaker, to pay tribute to the firefighters tackling the blaze on Saddleworth Moor. I'm sure all our thoughts are with the firefighters and their community and families, and the member for Stalybridge and Hyde is there today to support them.
Support them how? Is he or she, I can't remember who, Going to be dancing on the flames to put them out, perhaps, or smacking them with a towel, a wet towel, no less. Doesn't matter.
On Brexit, Mr. Speaker,
the Pin, Patriarch of the Sith, I believe is a celebration of the NHS's 70th birthday, which was a creation, or claim to creation, of the Labour Party. So they're going to very proudly display this at every opportunity, all the while reminding everyone that the Conservatives 70 years ago, voted against it. Even though over the 70 years the Conservatives have done more to protect it than the Labour Party have. Which is a very subjective argument and controversial one, I guess, at the same time, but it is unfortunately true.
the business secretary believes...
Thank you, Queen of the Shade.
...that business is entitled to be listened to with respect. I'm sorry to see the Foreign Secretary is not here today with us.
He was in Afghanistan at the time, so when Emily Thornberry say in that very deadpan "Where's Boris?" he's in Afghanistan. And this is quite interesting because okay, so it's parliamentary procedure whenever a bill is introduced and anyone in the cabinet is against that particular bill, then they have to resign their post. Well, the government is in favour of a third runway at Heathrow. Boris Johnson is not. Therefore, it is procedure that he resign his post. However, because of how powerful he is, like Voldemort levels, he cannot do that. He's considered he's got far too many allies. He can't do it. So, to get out of being there on the day of the vote and therefore having to resign, he instead goes abroad for a quick trip to Afghanistan. And Boris Johnson, he used, and I think Corbyn may say it soon, an Anglo-Saxon turn of phrase. Well, actually what he said was, "Fuck business." That's what he said. Exactly that. Reportedly. He's never actually... no one's proven that he said it. And when he was asked about it on Tuesday, he didn't deny it. So people generally seem to agree here that he did in fact say "fuck business." There is some context to this though, and I think it's born out of frustration, but also his position being an ardent Brexiteer to business which has throughout the referendum and post-referendum done everything they can to scare people into agreeing with them. It's one of those very irritating movements by the business community to be so useless. But anyway, it is procedure that a cabinet member, if they do not agree with the government's position, to resign. In fact, someone did in fact resign recently, and I can't remember who it was. Let me scroll down. Where is it? I can't remember where it is. I know I have the article for it though. Give me a second. When you're ready. Oh, that's Heathrow expansion. Where is it? Greenpeace, environmental activists. Oh, here we are. Justine Greening, former cabinet ministers Justine Greening, Teresa Villas, and Greg Hands, who resigned last week as international trade minister. They voted against it. All three of them were different cabinet ministers, but they've all resigned because they're against it, and they have to because they're not in line with the government's policy, which is interesting because, unlike shadow cabinets, if you don't agree with your leader, you can just, if you fucked him, you can just sort of stay there. You can disagree on some policy. Anglo-Saxons, yes. Thank you. He has yet to say crisis, Captain. But anyway, yes. We'll get to some other relevant parts of this soon.
He takes a very different view, using an Anglo-Saxon term to make his point.
Fuck.
Which is
it's an accurate point. Fuck business. They have done everything they can to be to try and peddle the scaremongering. They claim it to be uncertainty, but it hinges on a misunderstanding. And we will get to that misunderstanding soon, I promise.
The Prime Minister's view.
Prime Minister!
This party and this government has always been a party that will back business and will continue to back business.
Of course they're going to back business, because they have lots of friends in business, which is something Corbyn are going to rail on members of the opposite side soon enough. The misunderstanding will come up later, I think. I just need to be reminded. I may have to write a note down.
And we back business because it is businesses that create millions of jobs for people in our country, that provide billions of pounds in tax that we can spend on our public services. It is businesses that are the backbone of our prosperity.
Actually, I'd say they are the entire bone of our prosperity.
And can I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, if he wants to start standing up and talking in favourable terms about business, he's got a decision to make. He can either back business or he can want to overthrow capitalism. He can't do both.
That's more of a sly dig at McDonnell, but then again he is a socialist, so how can a man stand in favour of business when he actually doesn't care for it, since it's capitalist and he doesn't care for it?
Mr. Speaker, I take the Prime Minister's response as a thumbs down to the Foreign Secretary.
I'm assuming he read that from a script.
In recent days, there have been unprecedented concerns raised by trade unions, business and even some cabinet ministers.
You mean like everyone did during the referendum and has done since?
Today, the CBI Director General said, facts ignored today mean jobs lost tomorrow.
A motto people should live by. So why do you do it on a regular basis? I'm not saying the Conservative government are innocent in any way, but you're about to peddle some actual fake news in about 2 to 3 questions' time.
Airbus supports 110,000 jobs in the UK supply chain, many of them very highly skilled, well-paid and unionised jobs.
Surprised you'd be talking about well-paid jobs. Interesting to note that a number of companies have indicated they would move to continental Europe to avoid tariffs, not so much because of the threat of jobs lost or contracts lost, but entirely because they just don't want to be paying tariffs, something that should be dealt with in the negotiations.
Company says no deal would force Airbus to reconsider its footprint in the country, its investments and its dependency in the UK. Can the Prime Minister reassure thousands of workers today and take the phony threat of no deal off the negotiating table?
Right, a couple things. Firstly, and importantly, oh, fuck it. No, I had it throughout the entire wait for the question, and then I lost it. It was important. Oh, right. No. Sigh. I really should write this stuff down before I start. This is embarrassing. There was actually something important about business. Oh, yes, 2 weeks ago in PMQs, this is it. There were a number of companies that had gone bankrupt in the UK, with tens of thousands of jobs lost. But he didn't ask about that. He was too busy character assassinating members of the cabinet. As funny as that is, and we all love sweet, sweet ponage, if you are truly about the people, for the many, not the few, surely you'd want to represent the many that lost their jobs, or were going to lose their jobs because of companies going to administration. But you seemed less interested in it then, and you are only now because finally companies seem to be falling in line with what you say. What was this question again? There was actually something relevant to that as well. I need to go back. I do apologise.
Thousands of workers today
blah, blah, blah.
and
Carry
take
on.
the phony threat of no
deal. Right. So, can anyone tell me why they think the government would not take a no deal off the table? There is an obvious answer. If anyone can get this, I'd be very surprised, but also impressed. Happy. Let's go with that. Happy. Because there is an answer. because, and I'm hoping with 30 seconds probably delay, you'll get this. If you take the fact that you will not turn away off the table, you tell your opponent that even the worst possible deal they could offer you is good enough. If your opponent knows you will walk away, they know that they cannot ignore you as a threat. I'm hoping more than one person got that. So I'm actually in favour of the government not removing... Count Dibula's in the chat, right. I'm hoping most people get, hello Dibula, that if you keep the no deal card, they know you will walk away and they lose out. That is a really important point, and I don't understand why so many people don't get this. When I was researching for my part 2 of the Anne Boleyn Reid video stuff I'm doing, I was listening to this in the background, and it hit me. I didn't realise for a long time why we hadn't taken no deal off the table. And yeah, okay. Yeah. For the EU, Napoleon's maxim stands true. Never interfere when your enemy is making a mistake. Yeah. It should... Michael, I wouldn't take a no deal right now, but the EU knows that's still on the table, which means they cannot fuck with us. They have to take us seriously because, unlike Corbyn wanting to take it off the table entirely, although I'm pretty sure, right, everything he says is posturing. The moment, if he gets into power in 2022... he will drive right into the middle of the road and do nothing because he realises the magnitude of what he has to do and how inept he is at doing it. That's not to say the current government is any better, but he is so irresponsible in so many different ways, he'll know he cannot get it done, and he'll finally realise he fucked up.
No deal off the negotiating table.
Prime Minister!
I say to the right honourable gentleman, he has raised the question of Airbus. Yeah. Well, if he is so concerned about our aerospace and aviation industry, why did he not back the expansion of Heathrow in this chamber?
Right. Now, this is important because he did vote against it. And in the description is a BBC news article where you can type in the name of your MP, and it will say, did my MP vote for or against the third runway at Heathrow? And I go into it, type Jeremy Corbyn for Islington North. He voted against it. There are a few others, and I just want to confirm it. Yes, of course. There are some that abstained. I'm a bit torn on this. Heathrow discussion is quite complicated, and I think it's important to understand that simply having a third platform isn't enough. It's really tricky because this has been argued about for decades. Probably a decade now, or maybe longer. To be honest, Heathrow does need a third runway. It's supposed to be the main one in this country, but there were alternatives. There are other places in this country an additional runway could exist. I grew up, I was born in Crawley, raised in Surrey. Around that area, very near where I grew up as a little boy in a village, there was Gatwick Airport. I'm sure even after much arguing, maybe another runway could have gone there. But it all comes down to where it's decided upon. I know Boris Johnson was against it, and he explained why. I know many did. I'm neither for or against it in this matter, because I know it could have gone somewhere else, but I simply accept it for what it is. Thank you, Socky. Check around 40 minutes to Scottish something. Sorry. I'll check in a minute. When we get to it, I think I do actually get to the SMP questions soon. I promise. I wanted to talk about Heathrow because it's not going to be done as quickly as people think either. Heathrow, just because it's gone through Parliament, doesn't mean for a second it's actually going to suddenly start and be done. It's going to take years because there are going to be appeals, and people are going to make it very difficult, and they're going to challenge it, and as is their right. Then again, with a majority of 419 to 100 and something, it's going to take a while. Oh, it's a check out the Scottish, and then quote made me chuck. Okay, word soup. Word soup. Right, yes, we will get to it. I promise. We'll get to it. 14 minutes. Okay. Although this does fall into the category of the Prime Minister just pwning the fuck out of Jeremy Corbyn. He voted against something that does in fact favour business. Debatably. I know some will be for and against it, but... Simply voting against it doesn't provide enough context to understand what he would have offered as a suitable solution or replacement.
Order.
Kitten, did you grow up just outside Gatwick? I was raised in Smallfield, and then grew up in Reigate, a family in Hawley. Good to know.
Order! Order, Mr. Snell! Calm yourself. Acquire the quality of an aspiring statesperson. Calm. The question has been asked. The answer from the Prime Minister must and will be heard. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have to say, I say to members of this House, I don't normally agree with the Secretary-General of Unite, but on this occasion, I actually do agree with him, because he says that backing the expansion, the third runway at Heathrow, would ensure our country remains a world leader in aviation and aerospace.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Foreign Secretary...
Ignoring that for a second, it seems quite interesting selectively, or to ignore, when it's obvious that she has then listened to businesses, and when others have decided, screw it. Oh, Tiger Lily, thank you very much. Moist. Indeed. I'm getting close to that tentacle hat. Victory is mine! What was it? Yeah, it's Reigate. Yeah, my nigga. Felbridge Forest Rona Village. Yes. REI, by the way. It's interesting to note that he has accused Jeremy Corbyn accuses Theresa May of not listening to business, but by quoting what she quoted, she has proven that she has in fact listened to business. So it's quite interesting. It seems selective, and it also shows he's not really listening to the answers. He is listening while reading his script. He's not really listening at all.
He didn't back it either, but in his own way he was helping the aviation industry by spending 14 hours in a plane for a 10-minute meeting.
That's because, and Corbyn's doing this because he knows the parliamentary procedure that you resign your post, but Jeremy Corbyn's overlooking the fact of how powerful Boris is. And I hate to say that multiple times, but it is true. He's far too popular within the party and has far too much political sway to be caught out like this. And I think it's only... considering how divided the government is on Brexit, it is quite interesting that he's still in the cabinet to begin with. But I'm not totally against it, because I think Boris is hilarious.
In Afghanistan. Mr. Speaker, the government is not threatening the EU with this ridiculous position. It's threatening skilled jobs in this country. But at least there's one government minister that understands this. That's the honourable member for Aberconwy. He asks, I think about the health and I think it's about the health and foreign secretaries. Do the Tory leadership aspirations of multimillionaires trump the need to listen to the employers and employees of this country? Well, apparently they do. The head of BMW, directly employing over 8,000 workers in this country, 8,000 jobs in this country, said they need to know the government's plans for customs, and said if we don't get clarity in the next couple of months, we will have to start making contingency plans.
These companies have been doing this for a long time. Nothing has changed. They keep making these threats because they want to remain within the single market. That's either because of the job security that they all claim, or because they're afraid of being a part of the global market. I'll let you choose which one, because I'm too lazy.
Order, order, apologise. The Prime Minister was heard. No concerted attempt from either side of this House to shout a member down will ever succeed. However long it takes, the Prime Minister will be heard and the Leader of the Opposition will be heard. Get the message. Jeremy Corbyn.
Go on, Jeremy. The noise of people hiding
Go on, Jeremy.
behind the
He's reading from a script, for fuck's sake.
gallery is interesting, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking the Prime Minister how many more firms are telling the Prime Minister in private what Airbus and BMW are now saying very, very publicly.
What a waste of a question. This actually is a waste of a question. Most businesses have been doing this publicly. So which businesses are left to say it privately? Don't now say to me Toys R Us, because it's not like they're going to be around much longer, if at all, anyway. Oh, hang on, maybe another business, Maplin. Oh wait, they're gone too. What a ridiculous question. I have to admit, this is a waste, much like the first one. So that's 2 questions he's wasted. And I'm waiting for him to get to the Jacob Rees-Mogg stuff, because it's fucking hilarious.
Prime Minister!
We have been meeting with business. We are listening to business. That's why we're very clear on our customs arrangement that we want to ensure not just that we deliver on our commitment in Northern Ireland, but also as frictionless trade as possible, but also that we can trade around the rest of the world. But if we're talking about plans for government for business, it is this government that has brought the deficit down. It is this government that is seeing employment at record levels. What would Labour's 3-point plan for business be? A 7% rise in corporation tax?
Which would mean that most businesses would leave the country anyway. So, threat of them leaving the country because of Brexit, or threat of them leaving because they are asked to pay more tax. One of them would actually happen, and it would not be the Brexit one, because that's posturing.
Nationalisation without compensation and a run on the pound. That's not backing business, it's a plan to break Britain.
The run on the pound thing, I think that's a repeated reference to the fact that he would borrow hundreds of billions to buy back services. Which we had to sell because we couldn't even make them work to EU levels. If we're out of the EU, then we set the standards, so we can actually buy the services back and have them run at a standard that we are okay with. The EU standards are far too high. And believe it or not, there is such thing as too high a standard for water purification. You might as well just give people bleach at that point.
Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting that even those Brexiteers who've made Brexit their life's work are concerned
That's not true.
about their own financial interests. The Honourable Member for North East Somerset,
This is the Jacob Rees-Mogg bit.
for example, is relocating his hedge fund to the Eurozone.
That is not true. I actually did some digging on this. So firstly, where is it? Right. A hedge fund. I thought I'd define this. They are alternative investments using pooled funds that employ numerous different strategies to earn active return for their investors. They may be aggressively managed to make use of derivatives and leverage in both domestic and international markets with the goal of generating high returns. Okay? Jacob Rees-Mogg's company is called... Oh, fuck's sake, load then. Is called... Where is it? I've got it written down as well. Yeah, okay, you can load now. Oh, you're not going to load. Oh, even better. Where is it? It's called Somerset something. Somerset Capital Management, right. Somerset Capital Management is not a hedge fund. It is actually an investment fund. An investment fund is a supply of capital belonging to numerous investors used to collectively purchase securities while each investor retains ownership and control over their own shares. That's quite a big difference between a hedge fund and a investment fund. But believe it or not, it was founded by this company, Somerset Capital Management, was founded by Rees-Mogg, Dominic Johnson, and Edward Robertson in 2007, and currently has 7.6 billion under management, which has offices in London and Singapore. Jacob Rees-Mogg, before he was an MP, was an investor. He even in his biography, he actively, when he was like 10 years old, paid attention to the stock market. He invested a £50 note when he was, I think, 12. His dad did it for him, and he's been investing since then. He has been doing it as a career. He does it now, in fact, except difference now is he's the chairman. He gets a monthly return of about 10 to 12,000 a month. He does obviously at the end of the year, banking year, get a huge dividend for, you know, the returns and profits. Of course, this is why he doesn't claim as much on expenses as other MPs, because he doesn't need to. It also helps that his wife, when his wife's parent dies, will inherit 100 million, but he himself has millions already. He is almost self-made in that regard. Yes, okay, he comes from a wealthy family, but he has made his own money. And as an MP, he gets a decent salary, but he earns a salary from another company that he runs. He just doesn't deal with investing these days. But even if he wasn't an MP, or even if he lost his seat, he would just continue as an investor. Because let's face it, he doesn't need to worry. And yes, it was £50, yeah. Oh, right, okay, you got 50 quid from a distant cousin. Right, I checked it. All these are linked below. There's even a, on the Independent for 2016-2017 tax year, right? There is a an income statement from Somerset Capital Management, right? Oh shit, don't drop the alcohol. There it is. The turnover for that year was 34,987,000. Administrative expenses were 7 million. And after tax, it went, I think, profit for the year after remuneration took it down to 21 million. And then obviously that is then taxed on a rate of, I think, 21%. I think that's business tax. Yes, 21%, I believe. So that's not bad. He's done very well for himself. I'll give him that. Yeah, so there are a couple articles down there that actually explain how he made his money. But to be clear, it was not a hedge fund. And after this happened, after PMQs, I'll have to now pull it up because I've deleted it. Jacob Rees-Mogg. He what was it? He called it. Fuck it. Let's pull up PMQ. Yeah, he and Mogg and Corbyn, they clashed in PMQ because, and I believe the quote, there was a video for it. He accused Corbyn of terminological inexactitude, which basically means he peddled false news, fake news. He lied, which is actually against parliamentary code. You're not allowed to lie in Parliament. So that's interesting. He okay, so Corbyn, Rees-Mogg actually said, "My company does not actually run a hedge fund, so to have moved a hedge fund would have shown a remarkable acrobatic nature within the business, but we have not in fact moved a fund out of the country. In fact, while they have funds outside the country, it is not a hedge fund." He asked Corbyn to set the record straight, but he did not. He chose not to answer. Imagine my shock. But it is actually against the rules to lie. So that'll be interesting to see if he actually does correct himself in the future. Let's go with that. Terminological inexactitude. And apparently that was only used once before. What a ridiculous turn of phrase.
The Honourable Member for Wokingham is advising his clients to disinvest in Britain.
Right. This is reference to, what's his name, John Redwood, who basically also in the 90s said the European Central Bank was promoting faster growth, and at the time when he claimed Bank of England policies were having the opposite effect. So he suggested to look further afield as the UK hits brakes. There's nothing wrong with suggesting to people to consider whether investing their money if the evidence suggests something. And this is one of those inconsistencies, I guess, because a number of times the government has said, or the Bank of England has said something, and obviously the economy has gone the other way, i.e. it has grown. But when it's slowed down, there is nothing wrong with suggesting to people that they might want to look at better economies. That's reasonable. Of course, we want to keep their money here, but if you have a role in investment, then there's nothing wrong with suggesting people actually be more proactive in how they spend their money. And this is a man who was a chief global strategist for Charles Stanley Investment Group. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. He is thinking ahead here. I believe he's also a Brexit supporter, so he's actually doing it from a position of supporting Brexit but understanding the consequence. Anyway.
Meanwhile, in the real world, Andrew, who works for Honda in Swindon, wrote to me and said, "I wouldn't laugh if I was you. These are real people with real jobs and real concerns."
But you're asking really shitty questions. It's all well and good having these real people, which it's a shame actually you deviated from when you first took up position as the leader of the opposition, because you originally asked questions submitted to you by constituents. If you still did that to this day, I think you'd be a lot more popular, but you sprinkle them every so often. You're not as consistent as you once were on this. In fact, you ditched it after, I think, 1 week, maybe even less.
And he writes, "I've seen nothing that gives me confidence the government is going to deliver a trade agreement allowing the seamless flow of goods."
No one's seen shit on the trade agreement yet. We're waiting for the white paper to be published. People are jumping the gun and assuming everything. This is embarrassing now.
Through Europe's borders. My job, along with many others in manufacturing, suppliers and supply chains, hang on this. So will the Prime Minister ignore her Foreign Secretary, listen to workers and secure an agreement that safeguards jobs in this country?
The only way anyone gets that so people can shut the fuck up would be to remain a part of the single market and customs union. Hell, let's go one better. Let's join the superstate of the United States of Eurasia. I mean Europe. Europe, not Eurasia. Yet.
Prime Minister!
We are putting jobs at the heart of what we do in relation to Brexit. We're putting jobs at the heart of what we do as a government through our modern
Which is the whole point of government.
industrial strategy, and we are ensuring that when we deliver Brexit, we will be delivering a Brexit.
Oh, she mentioned industrial strategy. I actually read that and have linked it below. It's incredibly boring. The word tedious just isn't enough.
That is good for our economy, good for jobs, and good for people up and down this country. But the right honourable gentleman, I think, through most of his career, has actually been rather a Brexiteer himself.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that now, actually, because this is fantastic. So, there's a whole article of things that make Jeremy Corbyn actually a Brexiteer, but even though he supports it now, he is both praised and criticised for one of his defining political features, which is sticking decade after decade to the same political views. So we're going to go through a list. Oh god, there's a list. It's a long list. Okay, so a way of understanding his views on Brexit are as those two follow a long-run consistent approach. 1. Jeremy Corbyn voted for Britain to leave the European Economic Community in 1975's European referendum. 2. Jeremy Corbyn opposed the creation of the European Union under the Maastricht Treaty, speaking and voting against it in Parliament in 1993. During the 26th referendum, Leave left highlighted repeated speeches he made in Parliament opposing Europe in 1993. 3. Corbyn voted against the Lisbon Treaty on more than one occasion in Parliament in 2008. 4. In 2010, Jeremy Corbyn voted against the creation of the European Union's diplomatic service. 5. Jeremy Corbyn voted for a referendum on Britain's membership in the EU in 2011, breaking the Labour whip to do so. In 2011, so 6, Jeremy Corbyn also opposed the creation of the EU's European Stability Mechanism, which helps members of the Euro in financial difficulties. He did want to help other countries. How very nationalist of him. This vote is a good example of how Corbyn votes with hardcore Eurosceptics. Only 26 other MPs joined him in voting against, and in their number are the likes of Peter Bone, Douglas Carswell, Bill Cash, Ian Paisley Jr. and John Redwood. John Redwood mentioned earlier. Douglas Carswell, he flip-flopped. He was once a UKIP MP and then back Conservative. Okay. 7. Jeremy Corbyn opposed Britain's participation in the EU's banking authority. 8. In 2016, his long-time left-wing ally Tariq Ali said he was sure that if Corbyn was not Labour leader, he would be campaigning for Britain to leave the EU, whilst his brothers Piers Corbyn also said that Jeremy Corbyn was privately opposed to Britain's membership of the EU. I'm on 9 now? Yeah. Corbyn went on holiday during the 2016 referendum, and his office staff consistently undermined the Remain campaign. He refused to attend a key Remain campaign launch. He probably has allotments, and also attacked government ministers for publicising the Remain case, saying that they should also have promoted arguments in favour of Leave Vote. The director of the Remain campaign himself, a Labour member and candidate, said, rather than making clear and passionate Labour case for EU membership, Corbyn took a week's holiday in the middle of the campaign and removed pro-EU lines from his speeches. During the referendum campaign, Leave EU highlighted Corbyn's attacks on Europe made in 1996. What number am I on now? Fuck it. 12T. The day after the European referendum in 2016, Corbyn called for the immediate invocation of Article 50. The 2-year notice to leave the EU much quicker than even Theresa May wanted, much lot quicker than anyone wanted. That doesn't really indicate he actually is pro whatever. He just did that to shit on him. In 2016, Corbyn voted in Parliament in favour of the UK leaving the EU and for the process to start. A lot of MPs did vote against that. The next one, 12T and 2. Corbyn voted in 3 times voted in 2017 in favour of the Prime Minister starting the process. Right. And I'll do one more of these. In the summer, 12T and 5, whatever. So 12T, 12T. In the summer of 2017, Jeremy Corbyn opposed Britain remaining in the single market. He even sacked from his team Labour MPs who voted in favour of the membership of the single market. He even sacked those that suggested having a second referendum. But he didn't sack Diane Abbott, who also said that. Because he loved that black ass. Jeremy Corbyn has jungle fever, everyone. I was so happy when I saw this, by the way, because it was so funny. What is this? Oh, yeah! A fact checker on a soon-to-be referenced point. Right, let's continue. Sorry for the waffling, by the way. But his lack of response there, the face you're looking at, and the confused look on the woman next to him, token, because they have nothing on this.
Why is it then that at every stage he and the Labour Party are trying to frustrate Brexit in this House?
Because that is the job of the opposition. In fact, by doing so, they are fulfilling their job quite well. His actual beliefs don't matter, because the end goal is for him to be in power. Even if what he says kind of supports Brexit. Yeah. And yes, I know the SNP are funny. I'm hoping to get to Ian Blackford. We should do that.
Jeremy Corbyn!
The Labour Party's priority is defending jobs in this country. And, Mr. Speaker, I doubt that Andrew from Swindon is alone amongst skilled workers when he goes on to say, I will hold the Prime Minister and her party culpable if my job and those of my colleagues at Honda end up being under threat. The Cabinet was split into 2, apparently, to look at options for a future customs arrangements with the EU. The Prime Minister's preferred option was a customs partnership. We've had no official feedback on that working party. So did the Leader of the House speak for the government when she said on Monday, I think the customs partnership looks quite bureaucratic and unwieldy. Is that option now ruled out as well?
I actually do want to know whether this is, and if I remember correctly, it has been ruled out. Because it can't work.
Prime Minister!
As I've made clear on a number of occasions in this House, we are looking at both options in relation to customs because we want to ensure that what we deliver is that frictionless trade.
Okay, to the chat. Patriarch of the Sith. Who is Diane Abbott? Diane Abbott is a token black woman. She is innumerate. Innumerate? She cannot count for shit. she's feckless. She hides behind her skin tone. Whenever she's criticised, she then accuses people of racism. It is quite embarrassing. If I can, I'll pull a picture up. Give me a second. I will go and get a picture of her so you can see. Let's get a picture of Diane Abbott. Let's find a really good picture that really represents her. Oh, this will do it. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah. Let me just get OBS. Hang on. Let's add an image. You're going to love this. I found a really good picture of her. It's actually probably the most photogenic picture I've ever found of Diane Abbott in my life. There you go. Just for all of you. Sorry. I couldn't resist. It's Diane Abbott, so, you know, you can't blame me for that. Let's remove that. Yeah, Corbyn banged that. I'm not putting that picture back on the screen. There's just too much. Oh dear. Let's press play and go.
As frictionless trade as possible with the European Union, and an ability for us to negotiate trade deals around the rest of the world. That's what we should be looking for. It's what we're doing as a government. As a Labour Party, he says a Labour Party's interest is in delivering jobs. Why is it then that every Labour government leaves office with more people out of work than when they went in?
Ooh. Right. This is actually a really, really, really fantastic thing. Close that tab of Diane Abbott. I don't need to see that. So there is a claim. There's a claim to this. Every Labour government in history has left unemployment higher. There is a rather lengthy in the description essay, but there is an image also linked below of UK unemployment from 1881 to 2017, and inflation that obviously marked from 48 to 2016 as well. For this, you have to address who was it? MacDonald, I believe. Oh fuck it, I can't remember. Yes, MacDonald, because he was the first Labour PM. Yeah, he was the first. Was he? Yes, he was the first Labour Party politician to become PM. When he left office. While the number had gone through a huge unemployment spike, humongous, in fact the highest it had ever been, it had started to come down by the time Baldwin was elected in like the 30s or something, whenever. But it was still higher than when he left. The next one would be, I believe, Attlee, who had it at one of the lowest ever recorded. But by the time it came to Thatcher, which is before the OPEC crisis, which is a different mess entirely, it was higher than when he started. Not by much, but certainly not by much as MacDonald. Fuck me. The next would be Tony Blair, who, because Margaret Thatcher she caused quite a lot of job losses, and obviously when she left, and even during Major's time, the number was still quite high. But Tony Blair is actually the nearest to not causing as many problems, but there were still job losses that were higher than that of when he started. But it is smaller. Probably the smallest of the three, although I would argue Tony Blair knew fuck all about anything and blagged it with that personality. It is quite surprising how much he managed to achieve, considering how much of a twat he is. Yeah, learn something new every day. First of all, I didn't even know who MacDonald or Attlee were. And then I found out. Interesting. Let's continue. But the claim is true, but not every Conservative government has been successful, even though, like, John Major's did technically start to go down. Really small. And he had 7 years. He didn't have the length of time Blair had. He didn't have as long as Attlee. He didn't have as long as MacDonald, I think. So it is a debatable subject, and obviously different economic times as well. Like Tony Blair was, I think, was it just before the economic crash he left? Yeah. So yeah, But then again, Gordon Brown was the Chancellor then. Man, that guy sucked.
Coming from a Prime Minister who presides over an economy where 1 million people are on 0 hours contract.
Yeah, the 0 hour contract thing is not great. But if I remember correctly, wasn't it introduced by Labour? I'm going to quickly look. Who introduced 0 hour contract in the UK? Who introduced it? Because I really want to know. Come on, tell me now. Nope, doesn't tell me. Okay, I know they were popularised quite a bit and abused during both Blair and Cameron's reigns. Oh yeah, employees in the United Kingdom, Sports Direct has over 90% of its workers on 0 hour contracts. Yeah. Yeah, I remember all this. And the, yeah, let's not go through that. That's cancer.
That is very rich. She rules out a customs union. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister rules out a customs union, the Leader of the House rules out the Prime Minister's preferred option, and reality rules out a maximum facilitation model. That only leaves no deal, which he refuses to rule out. She is putting jobs at risk. Sadly, it's not those of the warring egos in her cabinet, because they've now been rewarded with an invite to a pyjama party at Chequers. Meanwhile, thousands of skilled manufacturing jobs and the future of whole industries in Britain are at stake. The Prime Minister continues to promote the fallacy that no deal is better than a bad deal.
It's a very important card to hold, you fucking bellend.
No deal is a bad deal. But isn't the truth that real jobs...
Order, order. I apologise to the right honourable gentleman. I'll say it again. There is unlimited time as for order. There is unlimited time as far as I'm concerned. Order. The questions will be heard, and the order and the answers will be heard, and nothing and no one will stop that happening. It's as simple and unmistakable and clear as that.
I'm kind of glad he does step up when he does, but man, I want to punch him in the face.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No deal is a bad deal, but isn't the truth that the real risk to jobs in our country is a Prime Minister who is having to negotiate round the clock with their own cabinet to stop it falling apart, rather than negotiating to defend jobs of workers in this country?
Until the white paper is published, as I stated earlier, this is just speculation. We are still waiting for that, by the way, and I don't think we'll see it for another week or two, which I'm kind of looking forward to. I want to see what's going on, and we don't know. And yes, I get the point of being uncertain. I do. I get it. But it's still a shitty, shitty thing to just assume and assert everything. Jeremy Corbyn would be a very shit skeptic clone trademark.
Prime Minister!
I'll tell the right honourable gentleman what I and this government are delivering. We're delivering a successor to Trident, stamp duty slash for first-time buyers, a modern industrial strategy for jobs and growth, action on childhood obesity, 1.9 million more children in good or outstanding schools, fairer schools funding, new technical education, improved mental health services, expansion of Heathrow, record levels of employment, falling borrowing, rising real wages. We've triggered Article 50, we've agreed an implementation period, we've passed the EU withdrawal bill, a Britain fit for the future and leaving the European Union on the 29th of March 2019.
Do you notice how much of a waste of a point Jeremy Corbyn had for question 6? Essentially, it was a rhetorical question. It was a statement, almost as if it was a statement of fact, but it wasn't. And rather unfortunately, Theresa May actually reeled off a list of what appear to be positive things. Some are positive, not all though. So let's get to the SNP.
BMW, the CBI, the TUC, the Society of Motor Manufacturers. Mr. Government, this speaker...
If you can't see it, yes, he's doing the OCD thing with the paper, where he touches the top and touches the bottom. If I actually had any paper on the desk, I would probably be doing it as well.
Has completely failed to listen to business, has insulted the business community and left companies in the
Fuck business.
dark. Can the Prime Minister tell the House why 186,000 car manufacturing jobs are disposable to her?
No one said they're disposable. But as with all business that has made the threat of leaving this country, they're only doing it based on assumption and not knowing what's going to happen. Oh, and interesting to note, the Prime Minister's going to mention it anyway, but SNP didn't vote in favour of Heathrow expansion as well, which would mean also going against business. But rather interestingly in this case, the Scottish Government actually supports Heathrow getting an additional runway. And the only reason the SNP's didn't vote was because there were no guarantees of the benefits. I'm gonna say this now. You fucking what, mate? There are no guarantees that the expansion would create at least 100 extra landing slots from Heathrow to Scottish airports every week. Right, even though that is almost a guarantee at this point. The argument presented by the SNP was that the government had failed to make a case for it, even though this has been debated for years. Are you telling me within all the drivel you couldn't see a legitimate reason to have a third runway? I firmly agree that we needed an additional runway somewhere, and it would certainly have a massive and positive impact on whichever place it was. There'd be a negative, yes, of course. Who wants a third runway at Gatwick or Heathrow? Or where's the other ones at Stansted? Do we have an airport in Guernsey? Maybe we could put an additional runway there. Turn Guernsey into a runway. Fuck Guernsey. Anyway, let's continue.
Prime Minister!
To the right honourable gentleman. We have been consistently listening to business throughout the negotiations so far. Business said they wanted us to give priority to citizens, EU citizens' rights here in the UK. We did just that. Business said they wanted an implementation period so there wasn't a cliff edge next March. We have negotiated an implementation period so that there will be a smooth and orderly Brexit. Business say that they want as frictionless trade as possible, so we are putting forward proposals to ensure that we provide that frictionless trade with the European Union. But alongside that, we will be developing a global Britain, looking out around the world, signing trade deals around the world. And if he thinks trade and business is so important, why didn't he support Heathrow expansion earlier?
It's important to note she didn't answer the question, because he asked specifically about motor industry jobs. However, and he'll point that out, however, she's made it quite clear that she is listening to business and puts forward what the government is doing that falls in line with what businesses have requested. You can't alleviate the fears of all business, of course, because a lot of it is absolute tripe. I should have said bollocks. I say we nuke Europe. The band or the continent? And are we talking continental Europe or the whole thing? I just want some clarity. Oh, for fuck's sake, stop full screening.
Ian Blackford!
Mr. Speaker, not for the first time it's a Prime Minister that failed to answer the question, and the cost is that investment has been turned off in Britain by a government that refuses to listen.
Citation needed.
Mr. Speaker, more than a year ago, the Scottish Government presented a plan for the United Kingdom to remain in the single market.
I remember this plan. I believe the exact paper actually said what they wanted was for Theresa May to turn round, drop her trousers, bend over, spread it, and take it. Take, Juncker's midget dick. I think that's what it was. Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. It certainly sounds like a policy Scotland would come up with. Also, and I hate to be the guy that says this, but it's all a good a devolved administration giving a suggestion for how to remain in the single market when that would completely contravene the entire point of Brexit. But I don't think anyone here, including in my chat, gives so much as one shit about a devolved administration. Because the devolved administration only represents a nation's interest, whereas the current parliament represents the entire United Kingdom's interests. Or do you not get this through your remarkably pudgy penguin head?
And the Customs Union to give certainty to business. Just this week, Scotland's First Minister took a trade delegation.
Lol, Scotland's First Minister.
From Scotland to Berlin.
Negotiating trade, are you? It's funny. It's adorable. What are you going to sell them? Tartan paint?
Every step of the way, the Scottish Government has been seeking to protect jobs and our economic interests.
There it is. Protecting economic interests of Scotland. You're not preserving the interests of the entire nation. Only Scotland, you self-serving shit.
Years on from the EU referendum, and with the clock ticking down, the Prime Minister has done nothing but increase uncertainty.
Granted, she has. But what's your point?
Has the Prime Minister completed any economic analysis on the jobs and the economy were the UK to stay in the single market and the customs union? And if not, why not?
Right, so these were actually things that were done during the referendum itself. Because the then government was rather arrogant. Much like everyone that voted... Oh, not voted. Much like any MP that was arguing for Remain. They went out of their way to only consider a Remain option. So I want to be quite clear here. This is actually quite... Oh, thank you, Tiger Lily. It's very generous of you again, as always. So your entire argument is fucking useless. The government had been considering this much like anyone had before the vote, because they were going to stay a part of the single market, and there was no way we'd ever leave that. Right? Let's hear our answer before I finish this.
Prime Minister.
The right honourable gentleman. He talks about investment into the United Kingdom. Last year, the United Kingdom remained the preferred country for investment, foreign direct investment in Europe. It's the preferred country in Europe for that foreign direct investment.
Probably because taxes are a bit lower than they are in other countries.
We saw last year 76,000 jobs being created as a result of foreign investment here in the United Kingdom, more jobs being created through foreign investment than in the previous year. And if he wants to talk about further confidence from business, just look at the fact that this month we've seen £2.3 billion of investment being announced by the tech industry as part of London Tech Week, creating another 1,600 jobs, and the more examples I could give him. If he wants to listen to business, though, he should listen to Scottish business, because their message is very clear. Stay in the United Kingdom.
I'm going to leave that smug look on his face there, because he doesn't agree with this. But there are a number of businesses that have said the only way Scotland prospers is as a part of the United Kingdom. And the majority of them, while concerned about the fact that we're leaving the EU, have at least accepted it. They're not so self-serving. Oh wow, I just realised the woman sat next to him, token ginger woman, which you can't see. She's also rolling her eyes. It's... Oh wow, he looks like a fucking spastic. I'm done with this. No, we're done. We're not doing that. Go away. There we go. Yeah. It's a bit of a... That is a cannon. Indeed. If you guys have any questions about PMQs or in general before I finish, please feel free to ask them now before I end this. Also, could you, if you want to, you don't have to, could you please slap a like on this? Because I've discovered I am incredibly close to getting demonetized on this channel. I want to try and promote it a bit more, because I like people listening to me bleat on, as I've said in videos. Yeah. I'm that guy. And also, Disconar, I know you thumbed this down twice or once. I know you did that, Disconar. I know that was you. If there are no questions, then I guess I can end. Let me see. Nope, chat's died. Okay, cool. I'm going to end this stream then. Screw it. Thank you all very much for listening. Hope you all have a lovely evening. Oh, hang on. Did May fall for Jock's trap? Maybe. Only once. Fair enough. Well, okay then, never mind. Thank you all for listening anyway. Bye-bye.